Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. Where do we begin? A new pope elected, Pope Leo XIV, the first American pope. And we've been digging up some of the prior posts when he was Cardinal Prevost over in Chicago, although he spent most of his time in Peru as a cardinal. And he was someone who was very critical of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And is this kind of the Mark Carney effect? Is this like what we're seeing in Australia? Did they pick somebody seeing the United States in decline to kind of make a statement? You know, because someone in a bishop in Donald Trump's like spiritual advisor council had previously been on the record as saying, there'll never be an American pope. And when there is, it signals the decline of America. That's actually
talking about foreshadow, right?
So you have that data point, but it seems like, by all accounts, an incredible person. Whether you're religious or not religious, it's still, I'm not Catholic, but it's a touching event to see the white smoke. It made me emotional, regardless of what your religion is. So we can talk about that. We can talk about the way we should frame what Donald Trump did with the United Kingdom earlier today as a fake trade deal, right? I mean, Donald Trump lights the fire. He's the arsonist. He creates the problem. And then he reduces, 25% tariffs across the board to a reduction to 10% tariffs now on like Land Rovers and Range Rovers. And they're claiming that that's it.
Can we get into it? Because I think the audience really needs to hear something. First and foremost.
You want to go that one first? Let's go that one first.
Yeah, I want to take that one first because this one really bothered me, as I'm sure, and I'm getting from the tone of your voice. It bothered me equally. First and foremost, the United States only has a handful, at best, of countries that we have a trade surplus with. UK happens to be one of them. So this is like beating up on somebody you're making money with. For what? For the purpose of being able to bring them back and say, oh, we're now going to increase the entire amount by a whopping $5 billion that we're going to force you to take our beef and chicken like if he's fucking John Dutton from Yellowstone. I'm so confused. If you want to go after somebody, tough guy, go after China. Go after the big dog. Right? But he knows he's not going to win that fight. He's winning a fight against somebody we already have a positive trade surplus with. I'm confused. And you know what, Ben? I would love your take on it.
My take on it is it's a fake deal, right? It is the typical Trump gimmick, right? You claim you did something, you manipulate the markets, and then you move on to the next fake deal gimmick. And he's a life of gimmicks. Some may call the gimmicks fraud. Some may call that a Ponzi scheme or a rug pull presidency, but that's what it is. And then he keeps doing gimmick after gimmick until it runs out. Then there's a bankruptcy, something catastrophic happens. Then he finds a target to blame. Oh, it's Dr. Fauci's fault. Oh, it's Jerome Powell's fault. Oh, it's this expert or that expert. He then brings the anger and resentment that he cultivates among his cult to the next target, and then they kind of move on. And meanwhile, the data shows that Donald Trump has made $2.6 billion, the Trump family, from the crypto schemes and all of these things, while Main Street, while we, the American people, suffer. I want everybody to think about as Donald Trump takes this. We're going to say, Cohen?
Ben, he's made way more than $2.6 billion. Facts actually matter. He's made over $6 billion since becoming president-elect. You know that? Over $6 billion. This is legitimately the first time that his net worth is on par to what he's claiming it is. $6 billion. He's made over $4.5 billion just on Truth Social alone. He's made over $2.6 billion just on that crypto, on that meme token. This is the greatest grift in the history of the United States presidency.
And What's he posting every day? He posts the meme coin stuff. Buy the meme coin. If you have the biggest wallets, you get access to him. He's traveling to the Middle East to sit with Qatar and sit in Abu Dhabi and with the Saudis, who he has personal deals with. And all of this is just out there in clear and plain view for people to see.
He's in the Oval Office at a time on a, as you called it, a bullshit propaganda, right? Tariff scenario with the UK. And what was he hawking? He's hawking his properties overseas, right? He was talking about Doonbeg and Aberdeen and his other property in Scotland. He's sitting there talking about how great his properties are on the water. I mean, if you didn't watch it, it's certainly worth the watch because it could be one of the funniest things. No president sits there and talks about his business when you're talking about this, again, this trade war that he has started with now, basically the entire world, and now the capitulation by the UK. I'll tell you, what did you think, Ben? I'm going to turn the tables a little bit because normally you do it to me. I'm really interested in your opinion. What did you think of Kier Starmer's statements?
On the one hand, I think Prime Minister Kier Starmer has been very effective on Ukraine. He's been very diplomatic. He's rallied Europe together, Brexit notwithstanding. He's been there in France. He's invited people into the UK. And on the issue of standing up for Zelensky, I think he's been very, very strong. There's a very strange way, though, that he's gone about kind of dealing with Trump. Mm-hmm. And it looks, and I'm interested what our UK viewers think, because that's most important to me. But on the Trump issues, just in my opinion, it looks very sheepish. It looks very indecisive, would be putting it nicely. And it seems that Kier Starmer is allowing Trump to get propaganda wins at the expense of the United Kingdom on these types of gimmicky issues. And it doesn't seem to be helping Kier Starmer in his domestic polling, where you see the far right-wing parties like the Reform and others gaining ground. And I think it's because people would like to see in the UK Prime Minister Kier Starmer looking more like a Prime Minister Carney and fighting back, or an Anthony Albanese in Australia pushing back a little more. And so it's such a strange thing because I feel like he's been really good and strong on Ukraine, but on the Trump issues, it just feels like there's something missing. What do you think, Cohen?
It's funny that right, because I was listening to Kier Starmer and it sounded disgustingly similar to the way that Howard Lutnick was talking when Trump asked him to explain the trade deal that he and, what was the guy's name, like Jackson, had been negotiating with the UK counterparts. The reverence that they have to start with. Ben, imagine if every time you got on or I got on to talk to you in front of our brigaders. And I have to say, Ben, before we begin, I just want to say you're the greatest guy I've ever met. You're the smartest guy I've ever met. Thank God for you. Otherwise none of us would be able to, engage in a conversation, a meaningful. By the way, most of this is more true than the bullshit that Nutlick and the rest of them are sitting there praising, the Mandarin Mussolini. But to get it from Kier Starmer, to get it from the Prime Minister of the UK, where the first thing that you do while you're sitting there, I want to thank you for your leadership. You're like, what the fuck? Seriously? He's falling into this trap too, that you can't engage in a conversation with Donald Trump unless you start out by praising him. And in the middle of the conversation, you continue to praise him, and that you finish thanking him for his leadership and for basically showing the world that this is what needs to be done to mix shit up. Really? I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, what? How does something like this happen? Where is the fear by another country's prime minister coming from? And is this the only way that you have to stroke the ego in order to discuss something? I
Well,
mean,
it's very, though, and the strange part about it is that as of right now, that's really only coming from like the UK. It's an odd one, right? Like right now in Europe, by and large, the European Commission, the European Union standing up to Donald Trump, they're talking about countermeasures because of the disrespect Trump shown to Europe. We've seen Prime Minister Mark Carney stand up to Trump. We've seen President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico, basically saying, sovereignty never, cooperation sure. And she stood up, though, at kind of key moments, pushed back, and even kind of mocked Donald Trump's behavior with the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico talk. We're seeing strong language from Australia about sovereignty, independence, having stronger reliance on regional partners over the United States. So it's uniquely coming from kind of the UK. And also, when I talk about other countries, I want to do it very kind of humbly and recognize I need lots of data from the countries and from the people before I really start to form strong opinions, because one thing I know, it's other countries do not like Americans lecturing them about their domestic politics. So I try to take it very humbly, and I try to understand it at least from, is this helping, though, Prime Minister Kier? Like, what's the reward structure here for Starmer? He's becoming less and less popular with it, so it doesn't seem to be effective politically. I think to myself, is this helping the UK? And it feels relative to, if I'm UK, I'm looking more towards, Europe and elsewhere than an unreliable partner in the United States and cementing that relationship. So I'm just trying to, again, process it, to your point, Cohen, from some logical perspective. And I don't see why Kier Starmer does this. I see him being very unpopular. I see the far right wing in UK seizing on this stuff because they're a bad crew, but they at least know where they stand on those issues. Where Kier Starmer, you don't know where he stands. If you're left or center left, you're like, is this guy with us? Is he not with us? And that confusion, I think, is a problem. So, I that's my assessment of it, Cohen. But then you notice Donald Trump today also talks about, look, where he always throws out these breadcrumbs because he knows he manipulates the market with them. He goes, we're obviously sending Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to Switzerland, where he's going to be meeting with a delegation from China. Go and make a good deal. And then Donald Trump looks at the camera, right? And he tells people, he goes, now's a great time to buy stock. You should buy stock right now. Now's a great time to buy stock. Now, again, the real problem with this is that there's a lot. Manipulating the markets, bad. Let's just be clear. But this does not help Main Street. Americans are not day traders or use kind of quant trading systems that these hedge funds and private equity uses. Most people are just struggling to make ends meet. And this volatility screws them because what's actually happening in the economy is incongruent to what Trump is doing. And he realizes that I pump it up a little bit, I pump it up more, I pump it up more. Let me get back to those levels that I had 90 days ago. But where are we moving towards?
I don't know.
You listen to the people in the ports, the people who lead the port in Seattle, the ports of Long Beach, they say the ships aren't coming in, right? You've got Donald Trump's message to little girls. You get 5 pencils, you get $1. Which the ultimate irony, Cohen, is that in the campaign, the Trump regime rolled, before they were the regime, when they were campaigning, they rolled out the propaganda with the little girls. They're going to make my Barbies cheaper. My Barbies are going to be cheaper. Let me play this clip and then respond to it.
Of course.
What do you want him to do? What do you want him to say today?
I want him taxes and make Barbies cheaper.
Make Barbies cheaper?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. Have they gotten expensive?
Yeah, and Polly Pockets. All my favorite toys are so expensive.
So cute, right? I saw that. I wanted to ask you this because I saw there was a conversation that took place with the gentleman who runs the port. And I forget if it was San Diego. I know it's somewhere in California. And it's a massive, massive port. And he said, I want you to look outside my window. There are no boats. There are no ships, cargo ships with any merchandise. How is it possible when there are no ships coming in, no cargo ships, there's no inventory coming in? You have all of the dock personnel, you have the unions, you have the transportation, the trucking companies, and so on. None of these people are working because there is no cargo coming in. How is it possible that the American people, like you, like myself, like our political beatdown brigaders, you know the reality here of what is going on, that the shelves are going to be bare, plain and simple. If there is no merchandise coming in and people like these two cute little girls are buying merchandise, eventually there is no more on the shelf. I mean, it's just simple supply and demand. This is not significant economic concepts or principles. These are economic 101 principles. People have to understand that if there's no merchandise coming in because of the tariffs, China is not sending goods here. I have friends who are in that business. They turn around and they said, we're not sending you shit. Plain and simple. What happens then, Ben, when there's nothing on the shelves? How can Trump look at the American people in the eyes and turn around and say, it's great. We're actually making money by them not working. We're saving money.
And that's what he was saying today. He said, actually, the fact that ships aren't coming into the port, that means that we're not losing money. And,
I don't understand that.
And so I was giving a speech yesterday at what's called the Milken Institute Global Forum about podcasting in general, and I looked at the audience and one of the questions, like, what do you think this podcast resonates? Like, why do you think that this has become the top podcast? And I said, because we try not to overcomplicate matters. Like, we know inherently, Cohen, to your point, that this just makes no sense. Like, ships, like that was a business conference that I was at, right? Like, these are business people, private equity. So I was like, guys, this is not a good thing when ships are not coming into port. That's bad. We know that tariffs are paid by consumers. The importer pays the levy, they pass it on to the consumer. So when we're pretending that these things are not happening, what are we doing? We shouldn't overcomplicate these things. And I just said, we have to speak to people like people and just say, why are we punching down at marginalized communities? Why are we shutting down museums? What are we doing here? We're disappearing human beings and sending them to concentration camps and then saying they shouldn't get due process. I'm like, take a step back and recognize we're talking about human beings here, and we need to have those connections, and we need to reflect on common sense and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's why, I think it's important that we talk about what's happening, let's say, in the port of Seattle. So people go, hey, Ben, I appreciate your commentary, but what's the guy who leads the port saying? So that's why my catchphrase, like when I was a lawyer, I was like, let's pull up the exhibit. I go, let's play the clip.
Right.
Of America. So it's great to have you here tonight, sir. The tariffs so far, I wonder for you directly, what is the impact that you're seeing? How could you sum up how much your job has changed because of the policies coming out of the White House tonight?
Thanks for having me, Caitlin. I can see it right over my shoulder here. I'm looking out at the Port of Seattle right now, and we currently have no container ships at berth. And that happens every once in a while in normal times, but it is pretty rare. And so to see it tonight is, I think, a stark reminder that the impacts of the tariffs have real implications. It means that we don't have longshore workers on the dock right now unloading merchandise. We don't have trains taking that merchandise to inland ports and all the way across the country to places like Des Moines, Iowa, and Chicago, Illinois. And that's hundreds of jobs right here in our region and across the country.
You have none at your port right now?
We currently do not have any container ships at port right now. That's correct.
And that's because just nothing is being shipped over? I mean, that's pretty remarkable.
Well, it is. It's pretty unusual. We do anticipate, I was looking at our schedule, we anticipate about 25 vessel calls between here and the port of Tacoma over the next 7 days. And keep in mind, we're not just importing from Asia or just China. We do have activity from all over the world, largely the Pacific Rim, but we are seeing a significant drop in container volume through our gateway.
So when you hear that, that should raise a red flag. Now, it is true that big corporations stockpile in advance of catastrophe, but then that supply runs out. It is true that one of the ways to try to get around these tariffs that's being used is big corporations are able to move the goods from China to Vietnam, from Vietnam to the United States, where there's a 20% tariff, not a 145% tariff or whatever, the baseline, whatever Trump considers that is. But 80% of like jobs here, like 80% of like our economy is fueled by small to medium-sized businesses who aren't the Targets, who aren't the Home Depots and the Walmarts. And so what inevitably happens in this situation, I call it, Cohen, the Tom Hanks moment, who, by the way, was in Australia when he got COVID, and they took great care of him in Australia. Shout out to Elbows Up. I go Albo for Anthony Albanese there. Elbows up there. But this moment happens. And again, I don't know if it's this week. I don't know if it's next week. I don't know if it's 2 weeks from now. But then there's the Tom Hanks moment. Tom Hanks' moment is when the Ponzi scheme runs out. And then it's like, oh, shit, this happened. And it's not a surprise if you followed the data. It's not a surprise we're heading into recessionary periods if you follow the data and you see what's happening right now.
You know,
let's talk about that and more.
There's a whole issue here too in regard. They just can't take the product and retag it in another location. If it's coming from China and let's say it goes to England first, they can't retag the goods and turn around and claim that the goods are English goods, like a Rolls Royce, a Jaguar, or a Range Rover. They have a country of origin and production. And so it will get tariffed at 145%. You know, so I've heard that. I've heard people say that anyway. But even if they were able to get away with a cargo where they get it for the reduction, imagine the cost of taking it from China to England, stopping there, retagging it only so you could bring it to the United States. It's enormous. They still have to factor that in when they're talking about the price of the Barbie doll or the pencils or what have you. It's a bigger issue than what most people seem to understand. This whole concept of tariffs has been debunked by 27 of the 29 top economists in this country, talking about the circular flow of economic activity. You are killing all of the people whose hands touch that good from the time it leaves China to the time it ends up in your house as a direct result. It's like 20 different people are touching it, and they are all making money off of that product. It's really a bigger issue, and it really, truly needs to be outed.
I want to take our first quick break of the show. We've got a lot to discuss. We'll be right. Oh, we had a great Patreon chat, didn't we? Everybody should join our Patreon, patreon.com/political beatdown. It was great to see all those familiar faces. It's great to take your questions. We're going to do one next month. So patreon.com/political beatdown. Let's take our first quick break of the show.
You know when the new pant or shirt becomes your go-to? That's exactly what happened when I picked up a few new pieces from Quince. I mean, I'm wearing their pant right now. It's lightweight, it's super comfortable, and honestly, it looks sharp whether I'm on camera and out to dinner or just simply running errands. I also went on and grabbed their European linen shorts as well as a pair of their performance chinos. I mean, it's the kind of stuff that makes getting dressed easy. Why? Because everything fits well, it feels great, and it actually makes sense for real life. And here's what really impressed me. Quince gives you luxury quality without the luxury price tag. I mean, I'm talking 50 to 80% less. Let me say that again. 50 to 80% less than other brands that I've worn that claim to offer the same quality. They cut out the middlemen and work directly with top-tier factories that actually care about ethical manufacturing and premium finishes. I mean, you feel that the second that you put the stuff on. Now, I'm not somebody who shops for fun. In fact, I actually hate shopping for myself. But when you find a place that just gets it, like Quince, it changes how you build your wardrobe. There's no stress, no guesswork, just really well-made pieces that you want to wear again and again and again. So go and elevate your closet with Quince. Go to quince.com/beat for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/beat. Again, quince.com/beat. Go there now. You ever tried launching a podcast with zero experience? Well, let me tell you something. It's like being tossed into a cage match with a grizzly bear, blindfolded, wearing clown shoes. Because when I started Political Beatdown with Ben, I thought, come on, man, how hard can this be? Script writing, logos, production schedules, ad deals, and don't even get me started on the tech setup. I mean, I feel like I was decoding a damn matrix. Now, if only I had Shopify when I launched this beast. Shopify is the platform behind millions of businesses across the globe, responsible for a whopping 10%. You hear that? 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. And my friends, that's not hype. That's fact. From big names like Mattel and Gymshark to folks just getting their hustle off the ground, Shopify's got their back. I mean, you want a gorgeous online store? Shopify's got hundreds of sleek, ready-to-go templates that make you look like a design god. AI tools? Yeah, they've got those too. Writing your podcast descriptions, jazzing up your images, maybe even making you sound smarter than you are. I mean, not naming names. And you need a marketing squad? Shopify's built-in tools let you hit email, Instagram, TikTok, wherever your customers are scrolling or doom scrolling. And listen, Shopify handles it all. Inventory, returns, international shipping. I mean, they are the ride or die business partner that you never knew you needed. So if you got a big idea or even a little one and you're ready to turn that dream into a reality, head over to shopify.com/beat. That's shopify.com/beat to start your $1 per month trial today. That's Shopify, shopify.com/beat.
Welcome back. Political Beatdown. Great ad reads there.
And you know what we need to do? We need to make hats. MAFA, M-A-F-A. Make ads fun again. Woohoo!
I think you definitely make ads fun again. Let's show you Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent here. And here Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is trying to explain what he believes Donald Trump means when Trump says that little girls who are sad about having fewer dolls should just suck it up. His theory is it's going to be for the greater good, because what we're trying to do here in America is allow these little girls to get the low-paying jobs that are currently in China. We want to bring those jobs to the U.S. so these little girls can work in the factories, and then they can work there for generations and generations. Now, you may think the craziest part about what he's saying is that the little girls should only get $1.05. But when you listen closer to what he's actually saying here, he's saying for the greater good of the little girls working in factories for the rest of their lives, for the oligarchs. Listen carefully here what their true intentions are. Let's play it.
The other thing, too, is this reporter behind me was quite snarky the other day when President Trump talked about the girl having two dolls. And he said, well, what president didn't take the question, but he said, what would you tell that girl? I said, I would tell that young girl that you will have a better life than your parents, that you and your family, thanks to President Trump, can now be confident again that you will have a better life than your parents, which working class Americans had abandoned that idea. Your family will own a home. You will be able to advance. You will have a good education. You will have economic freedom. That's what we are advancing.
Yeah.
One of the things that.
Ben, let me say something about Donnie Two Dolls. All right. Be very clear about this gangster. And I want to thank Midas Touch Network for posting my story that I compared Trump to a bunch of gangsters. Here's the crazy shit. You know what they want? They don't want little girls playing with dolls. They want little girls to get pregnant and have more children. This is the shit that's coming out of this GOP. And I got to tell you, I felt for the first time yesterday when I saw people like Mitch McConnell, when I saw people, and I can't stand Mitch McConnell, or when I saw Lindsey Graham, another guy who's far from on my top 10 list, when I saw them turn around and say, okay, we're really going too far over the line right now, because that's what they're doing. They don't want you playing with dolls. They want you playing with your children because they just want to start overpopulating. That's the ideology of this MAGA group. And I just wanted to bring that to people's attention, because here's the thing. Ben, as well as I, what Trump does. He opens up the floodgate. He opens the spigot, and he just floods the entire zone with as much bullshit and nonsense as he can in order to distract us from the other things that they're saying. The beauty of Ben, the beauty of myself, of Midas Touch Network, this Political Beatdown show, is we bring it all together, because we don't forget any of it. If I have to write it down, I write it down. I put it into a little book, and I want to weave it, right? We want to weave it back in so that you understand what these people are thinking.
And that's where I go back to data. I always go back to data.
Right.
When I gave that speech, this week too, what I said to them also was, I said, I run a political media company. So you would think that I love politics. And I said to them, I actually don't like politics. I said, because politics to me is an abstraction in many ways from people. And to me, you have to focus on people and you have to listen to people. Then the politics should line up with your defense of people and human beings. Politics has been used to gamify the situation. And when you gamify it, you remove humanity from this and you remove logic. And basically, you all of a sudden start having debates over due process, right? The Democrats, due process. The MAGA Republicans, oh, you just want to support terrorists. And it's like, to me, I could turn this channel, Michael Cohen, into a place where, you have the split screen and then this side yells and this side yells. It's like, I own that, so yeah. That's not what I like. I don't enjoy this. That's not the type of discourse that I enjoy. You know why? There's no debate on some things. I'm not going to debate somebody who believes there should not be due process because of your status or the color of your skin or whatever. That's not a debate. There's no debate. Our Constitution says due process, you get process. And if you're convicted, you get punished. That's our system. You don't like our system, go to North Korea, go to Russia. I don't want to debate people who say doing tariffs against the world, where you use trade deficit as a formula and a proxy for reciprocal tariff, makes sense. It doesn't. It's stupid. There's no debate to be had. Right. We know where this brings you, and it brings you to bad places. So when it brings you to bad places, what the MAGAs do, they then attack someone like Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and they're like, oh, he's a Biden guy. He's a Dem. He's political. It's like, Donald Trump, you appointed this guy. He's your pick, Jerome Powell. And by the way, a good pick. He's a fine pick. Just because I support one party more than the other, I could say Jerome Powell seemed to have a steady hand. He's a smart guy. He uses logic, and we know that tariffs are bad. So I listen to what he says, and that informs me. But MAGA listens to what he says, and then they go and they attack him, and they go, "Oh, they're Fauciing him."
You know,
They're
my grandma used to always say, "You can't debate stupid." Right? It's just a complete and total waste of time. You can't debate stupid. When I heard this idiot yesterday, who I was having coffee with, tell me he thought Trump's superimposed face on the Pope was funny, I looked at him and I said to him, let's just say you and I have very different senses of humor. I don't find it funny. Pope Francis, less than 2 weeks ago, and this guy's putting his face on the. This is a guy who has as much right to be the Pope as you or I. I mean, and I'm not, because I'm not Catholic either. I mean, the whole thing is just so stupid. And for whatever, then they turn around when the common response that they give you. Well, imagine if it was Kamala Harris, Ben. Imagine if it was Hillary Clinton or their favorite boogeyman, right? Barack Obama. Imagine that they turn around. This is their return to response. Well, look at what Barack Obama did. Dude, we're talking about 2025. We're talking about a guy who's decided in and of himself. By the way, I agree. It's blasphemous. A guy in 2025 who is absolutely trying to destroy the global economy for an ideology that everyone has told him is wrong, except for the handful of people that he has chosen around him to validate what it is that he's doing. I'm with you, Ben. I'm lost on the concept. It makes no sense to me at all, and I'll never be able to understand it.
And look, I'm not some sort of, person who's like, I like jokes, I like dirty jokes sometimes. Like I like, I like some good, humor. Like I like comedy shows. I like people making humor that sometimes makes me feel, uncomfortable. Like I'm okay with that. But there's a time and there's a place and there's a location for all of these things. Like there's something called the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is actually where you could be funny, right? It's an environment where jokes and self-deprecating humor is supposed to actually take place. And there's places for that type of humor. And you're like, okay, that's funny. You can do it in a setting. But when it comes to on a day-to-day basis showing leadership in these United States of America from the presidency, that they're not supposed to be pulling this. They're not jokesters, right? They're not the class clown. Like you have the nuclear codes. You're leading the country. Americans are suffering right now. Prices are actually more expensive, despite you lying and claiming that they're less expensive. There's real systemic issues that are taking place, and you're out there doing jokes. And I think this joke framing of things, though, also desensitizes you to the concept of jokes. And he's a jokester. This is just him being funny. And then he weaponizes that and uses that, for example, when he says that he's going to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours, right? And what did he tell Time magazine? He says, I was joking. That was a joke. And it's the fake news who took me literally when I was just trying to be fun. This is what he literally said. He said he was joking and said it in jest when he said that he would end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. And that's so it all goes back to you can't take my words seriously. And the broader theme here, again, going back to the people over the politics, and I'm saying this because I'm a man, is that I grew up and my parents taught me, Ben, be a man of your word, right? That was something growing up. Be a man of your word. That's important. And so when you have a leader who is not a man of his word, but is a liar at every step, it erodes trust. It has major implications for stability internationally, frankly, which is one of the reasons why I think you have war breaking out between India and Pakistan when Donald Trump said there would never be new wars. I mean, you have a war right now between two nuclear powers. The United States is currently at war in Yemen with the Houthis. And by the way, we've lost 2 F-18 Hornet airplanes that the Trump regime doesn't even like
fell
talk.
off the side of a fucking ship.
But you know what?
needs to
You know
explain
what?
that to me.
But who knows, right? I mean, that's what they're saying, which is bad. In and of itself is bad. But there have been multiple of the Reaper drones that have crashed over Yemen, multiple, like 8. We lost 2 F-18s, and we know that there have been hacks on Hegseth and Walls and all of their equipment. Do you want me to not speculate that there's cover-ups? When they're lying about everything, and you're seeing a pattern of things crashing and breaking there, when we now have air traffic controllers in Newark saying, don't travel to Newark Airport, the hell? That's not normal.
It's not.
Okay.
And by the way, to those of you, our brigaders, it's not that there are 3 wars going on right now. There are 4. Let's not forget, you have Israel, Hamas, you have Russia, Ukraine, you have United States, Yemen, and you also have now India and Pakistan. 4. To the man who said that there would be no war under him because everyone would be afraid to do so, that they understand he doesn't play games. Well, let me be very clear. The hostages in Israel are not out. The 24-hour deadline between Russia and Ukraine, how's that going? All right. Nothing is going as Trump promised during the campaign. He sold America a bunch of lies, and they bought it. For whatever reason, they bought it.
I'll give you the reason why, and then we'll go to a quick break. People are struggling. People are vulnerable. People are living paycheck to paycheck. Who are usually the biggest victims of scams? Usually seniors and people who are living through a disaster, like a horrible hurricane or something, right? And that's when the fraudsters, they go in there and then they defraud people at their most vulnerable. When you take away people's education, when people are very vulnerable and scared, scientifically, we know that they're more susceptible to someone saying, I've got the solutions and I alone can fix it, especially where it's simple. And you could boil it down to a slogan. I'm going to make it great again. I'm going to make you so rich. I'm going to make you so rich. I'm going to make you so rich. And you say that over and over again. There's no guardrails. So that's the message beaming through. The message on the Democratic side is, well, we've got this great plan and it involves tax credits, and the tax credits are going to basically allow you to deduct $25,000 from a new house. And this is going to be what? And most people are like, okay, you've lost me on the word deduct. I don't even know what that word means. It's being serious. But what do you mean? Deduct? A duck? What do you mean? And Trump saying they're eating the ducks. They're eating the ducks. So as between deduct and they're eating the ducks, a message resonates with people who are vulnerable. Now, what the MAGAs are able to do, because there's no rules, they play by no rules. You can lie, you can make up a new lie, and you don't have to be consistent, is they've convinced the populace that the reason that you're suffering is because of the Democratic policies, notwithstanding the fact that of the 50 million jobs that have been created in the past 30 or 40 years, 98% of them have come from Democratic administrations who have also cut deficits. And you had former President Bill Clinton actually balancing a budget, whereas the MAGA Republicans have always added to the deficit, and Trump's the one who added to the deficit the most. Yet you ask an average American who was better on economy until Trump recently, they would always say Trump and Republicans, even though the actual objective data says the opposite. That means you have a very cancerous media environment. And it also means, though, this is where you have to understand messaging, the ability of predators to prey on vulnerable populations. And then why cruelty is the point is if you keep people more vulnerable, the more desperate they are, the more you could take advantage and pickpocket people who have their hands out begging, because you could say, here's a penny, boom, got your other dollar. Here's a penny, boom, got your other dollar. We have to take our last ad break. It's a quick, short one. Let's come back and let's wrap up this episode. Good episode, good discussions on this episode, very high level stuff. Let's take a quick break.
All right, let me tell you something. When you spend years in stiff suits, tight collars, and clothes that feel more like armor than fabric, finding something that actually fits and feels good, I mean, that's a game changer. True Classic, it's not just another t-shirt brand. They figured out how to make clothes that actually work for real life. I mean, these tees, like the one that I'm wearing right now, they fit exactly how you want them to. They're snug in the right places, relaxed where you need a little room. There's no weird bunching, there's no pulling, no rolling up at the waist, just clean, effortless, dependable style. But they didn't stop with t-shirts, no. True Classic's full lineup has you covered. Hoodies, jeans, activewear, the works. And the best part, it's all affordable. I mean, you're not shelling out designer prices and you're not stuck with cheap, disposable junk either. And look, I respect that these guys do things with purpose. From the quality of the fabric to how they treat their customers to how they give back, it's clear that True Classics not just building a brand, they're building trust. So here's the move. Head right now to trueclassic.com/beat. Use code BEAT and upgrade your wardrobe. You can even grab their stuff at Target or at Costco if you're running errands. But trust me, once you try it, you're going to want more. Again, head to trueclassic.com/beat.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown.
I'm wearing the white t-shirt right now, by the way.
I just did a quick search. In the past 100 days, from approximately February 2025 to May 8th, 2025, the U.S. lost at least 7 MQ-9 Reaper drones in Yemen, primarily due to Houthi rebel actions. March 15th and April 22nd, with specific incidents noted around March 31st, April 3rd, April 9th, 13th, 18th, 19th, and 22nd. Each drone is valued at approximately 30 to 35 million, totaling a loss of over 200 million. Regarding the F-18 fighter jets, the U.S. has lost, I think we've lost 2 during that period, each with a value of about 67 million. So if you take that, and I think that's a conservative estimate, we're talking about $400 million or so lost right there. And you just think about that money based on all of the cuts we've made to FAA workers. You think about the cuts we're making to, the Trump regime is making to mental health services for schools. They're gutting mental health counseling in schools by $2 billion. These MAGA Republicans who have blamed every school shooting not on guns, but on mental health, they're getting rid of mental health funding. I don't want anybody to lose track of that. They are trying to get rid of Medicaid, and we are heading to a crisis that we're already in many, but regarding the debt ceiling. And we're heading to a point of no return as well, where this MAGA Republican infighting is going to create a situation where we're going to be right against a deadline once again, with no budget passed, with the debt ceiling needing to be raised. We already have MAGA Republicans in the Senate now saying the reconciliation that's taking place on what Donald Trump calls a big, beautiful bill, stupidest name ever. It's a big, dangerous bill. It's dead on arrival. MAGA Republican Ron Johnson from Wisconsin saying zero chance what they're doing in the House is ever going to get through, in the Senate. We've got some MAGAs who want to get rid of Medicaid, others in more vulnerable seats who are saying, don't get rid of Medicaid because you're going to force us to lose the election. And again, this is this whole don't look up mentality, Michael Cohen, of that movie Don't Look Up, right? As the comet or asteroid's about to strike, we know we're moving towards these deadlines. And at its most basic level, pass a budget, pass a freaking budget. And pass a budget that actually does things for the country And the MAGA Republicans now have been using Nancy Pelosi's budget from like 2021, 2022 with continuing resolutions. And then Trump then rules via executive order, which is illegal, to then basically take the existing budget through continuing resolutions and then defund things and then just litigate all of these things in the courts, which by and large Trump is losing. But the status quo is already interrupted by him destroying the agencies.
Yeah, look, where it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You don't need Ben or Michael to tell you that we are legitimately right now entering a not just a American crisis, but a constitutional crisis as well. You know, as I sat and I watched Scott Bessent the other day testifying before Congress, and like Porky Pig stuttering, and then good for the congressman saying, I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming my time. You don't want to answer the question. They don't want to answer the question. Anytime that you ask any of these guys a straight up question, here's the thing. He asked him, do consumers pay tariffs? Oh, I know what you're trying to get me to say. Yeah, because consumers pay tariffs. By the way, these are the things that the Democrats need to do in order to get the message out there again and again and again. Now, that message, by the way, consumers pay tariffs, it's not going to resonate with the MAGA morons. And I know we got some trolls here who fall into that category. It's not going to resonate with them today. But Ben, you know when it's going to resonate with them? When they go over to the Walmart, the Costco, Amazon, wherever they get their stuff from, and there's little items on the shelves, and the items that are there are at least 2.5 times the price. They can't afford it. All of a sudden, when it hits them in the pocket, that's when they're going to turn around and they're going to realize, holy shit, I've been taken. And I think it was James Carville who queued up that line. It's the economy, stupid. Well, if you don't think the economy is going to become problematic for you, I'm not talking about for the billionaires that have the top 15 families in America made $1 trillion since Trump became president. I want that to sink into your heads for a second. A fucking $1 trillion. You know what sort of numbers we're talking about? I mean, how many zeros are we talking about? $1 trillion fucking dollars. Well, you know, they don't care whether you can afford, you know, your orange juice or your bread and your deli meat for your kids to send them to school, or your egg prices. They don't care about that. They have so much money. They not only are they going to buy the eggs, they're going to buy the chickens too. They don't care. That's the problem. And they are using the American people like pawns.
Two-finger salute.
Well, that's where I was going, Ben. When I was talking about Scott Bessent lying to the American people on something which is going to affect each and every one of us, Scott Bessent, fuck you for lying to the American people. You should be better than that. You know more about this. You should be better, and you should at the very, very least, be honest.
You know, his new thing, he was at the conference I was at also, this Milken event. And what he called it there is he calls it the Crazy Ivan theory. I'm not making this up. He says Trump is doing Crazy Ivan, which means go look this up if people don't believe me, which means strategic uncertainty. So he's just acting as a crazy Ivan, and that's going to be great for the American people because you just don't know. So everybody in the world is very confused, and that then creates leverage in the negotiation by being crazy Ivan. Now, rewind. Imagine if during former President Biden's term in office, the Treasury Secretary, who you could never even believe would even say something, is this guy is being crazy Ivan. We're just being so crazy and unpredictable. Like, it's not worth the mental gymnastics and exercise to even do this. But if Biden did any of these things, he would be impeached and probably imprisoned easily, and Democrats would vote to impeach him. If Biden did in 100 days, at any point in his presidency, what's just transpired in the past 100 days, you would see him in jail by now.
Yeah, or like in Gilead, they probably hang him from the bridge.
Alcatraz.
Yeah,
they would reopen Alcatraz. Oh,
just for him and Hunter.
So when we look through things right now, there's nothing that I think I've presented in this episode that to me at all feels ideological. Like, right. I don't think I've conveyed in any way, truly, go back and watch, an opinion on anything that to me feels like, oh, you're rooting for blue and donkey and dem versus red and elephant, so you're taking this side. The only side that I'm taking, which right now aligns with blue and dem, is tariffs used the way they are right now equals bad. I think that a United States president should not be joking about bringing peace to Ukraine in 24 hours and then saying that that's a joke when there's death and suffering. I don't think a United States president should be posting AI images of himself next to Netanyahu partying at gold hotels in Gaza while Israel announces it's wiping Gaza off the map. I don't think Israel should be wiping Gaza off the map. Let me be very clear about my position there at all. So
it's not funny when he uses AI to transpose his face onto the body of a deceased pope. There's so many things that he's doing that's just not funny.
And again, I don't think that again. People will say, "Oh, well, you're Midas. This is lefty progressive, so you're going to just say all of these things." No, what are you talking about? Like, at the end of the day, I'm trying to just convey. I'm trying to remove the politics, and I'm trying to just share. This is the data, and this is the fact. So if that is.
Yeah, look, let me be clear as I bring this thing home. None of this is funny. I like a good joke. I love a good joke. I love to tell a good joke. In fact, if you want me to, I would tell you one now. Next time I will. Let me be very clear. None of this is funny. Every single thing that he's saying is mean. It's divisive. And it's destructive to our way of life. And with that, I thank each and every one of you. Make sure that you check out my podcast, Mea Culpa, with the blue background icon. Make sure you go ahead and you check out our Substacks, my Substack, Ben's Substack, Midas Touch's Substack. Make sure that you follow everybody on Midas Touch Network. It is the place that you need to go in order to get your information that is straightforward, as Ben likes to put it, based off of documents and facts. And with that, everybody, we want to just say, have a great weekend. We will definitely be seeing you on Tuesday. Please share this with your friends. Tell your friends, our goal here, as in all of our different platforms, is to grow the community to a number so big that come 2026, it's not even a thought anymore. The blue tsunami will drown out this GOP horse shit once and for all. So please share Midas Touch Network with your friends. Follow me, share with your friends. Make sure that you follow everybody here on the Midas Touch Network, because this, again, is where facts come to breathe.
Read Michael Cohen's Substack. We posted it on the Midas Touch Substack as well. What a great article. Make sure you check that out. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on Political Beatdown. Shout out Midas Mighty and shout out Beatdown Brigaders.
Boom.